Sandi and I'm here today with my dear friends, Tom and Pam Alteffer. They're my business partners, and together the three of us have created Ask and Receive. And they have worked together as psychotherapists for the last 30 years. And one of their main areas of expertise is working with relationships. And that's really the reason why I want all of you to get a chance to hear what they have to say, because they have a unique way of dealing with relationships that I have never heard anywhere else. And it's just makes the most sense of any kind of work with couples and with any type of relationships of two people that I've ever seen. So that's why they're here today to share that with you. And so they specialize in how to have loving, happy relationships. And they also specialize in how to find your beloved. And I've got a real gratitude that I want to give to Pam, in that Pam really helped me in finding my partner. And I had been single for 8.5, 9 years, something like that, and had been reading every book, trying all these things, working on myself, doing all kinds of stuff. And then one day Pam said, I'm just going to take some time and work with you. And we were at a conference, I think, and we were on the beach, which was a lovely place to do this. And we must have walked for 2 hours. And Pam just worked on me to get rid of all the blocks I had to finding a relationship and having a good relationship. And one of the things I want to really tell you about Pam is that she is amazingly thorough. I mean, she doesn't let any tiny little bit of any issue remain. She keeps working till everything's clear. And then she did that, and we just sort of forgot about that. And really soon after that, I mean like weeks after that or something, we were actually at a conference together, and she was sitting next to me, and I had my cell phone was on, and I wasn't paying attention to the phone, but all of a sudden, I had been on these dating sites, but I had forgotten. I had stopped even caring about responding to anyone because I was so frustrated with the whole thing. And the phone is sitting there next to me, and Howard's face just popped up and said, "Do you want to chat?" And my first response was, "Look, Pam," and I was never going to press yes. And she pressed yes. And that's how my relationship started, and we've been living together for over a year now, and we're doing really well. And so I really owe this to Pam. So thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I adore Howard, so I'm very, very happy that you have found your beloved. With all my heart, it brings me great joy and pleasure.
Thank you. Me too. So the two of you have been married for together almost 32 years, right? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone always wants to know, how did the two of you meet?
You want to take that one?
Sure. Well, we met at a introduction orientation at social work in Phoenix, Arizona, and we kind of spotted each other. But in social work school, what they do is they break you up in groups all the time, so you can chat and work on different issues and things like that. So we had to count off. There was a group of about maybe 60 people or something, and so everybody's counting off 1, 2, 3, 4, and Tom afterwards was in every single group of mine, and I just thought that it was fate. He sat right next to me in each group, and we did our little social work discussion, and I really enjoyed his energy and enjoyed him. And later on, I found out after we started dating that he had arranged that. He had counted off. He had found out exactly what number I was, and he just went to every group that I was in. And from then on, we started to date, and that's how we met. Well, but I was fake, and he arranged the whole thing.
Sometimes fate can use a little help.
Oh, that's great. And it all worked out. Perfect. So how did you two of you get interested in working with people with their relationships?
Boy. Well, I think probably that goes back to our relationship. Um, Way back 30 years ago, when when we first got married, there was a lot of stress in our lives. We moved back east. We got new jobs. We got married. We had a lot of things going on at the time. And we started to not get along so well. And because we were new psychotherapists, we asked the people at the place where we were working, where's the best couples therapist there is? And they said, oh, you have to go to this one woman in Philadelphia. So in Philadelphia, it was about an hour away. So we would drive once a week to go see her in downtown Philadelphia. And we saw her for quite some time. And every time we would go, we would have a good time as we were driving there, talking about things, figuring out where we were going to go for lunch. And then we would go in and we would have our appointment with her. And we would talk about all the things that weren't working in our relationship. And we would complain about each other. And we would discuss what couldn't possibly change. And we would leave there feeling 100 times worse than when we first got there. And we would be fighting in the car on the way home. And after a while of doing that, we really were getting the idea that this counseling thing isn't working so well. And one session, when we came in, we were talking with her, and she sat us down and she said, you know what? I don't think the two of you should stay married. I think you should get divorced, that the differences between you are too large, and you're never going to be able to work it out, and you're still young, so you should get divorced and find somebody that you can get along with better. And we left there stunned. Wouldn't you say? I mean, we were stunned.
We were stunned. And, we have a lot of training in strategic family therapy. This was not a strategic intervention that she had planned out. This was her opinion. So we were stunned, and we decided, no way. No way. We have a deep love for one another. We want to make this work. There is no way we are ready to get divorced at this point. So we stopped seeing her, and we decided to research ways to best help ourselves and others. And we've always been on a quest to find the best techniques to help people individually and for families and couples. So that began our quest. And
so we divorced the therapist instead of each other.
That sounds like a good thing. And you've lasted longer than most couples, really. I mean, way beyond the odds. So you've done really well. So obviously, in your research, you figured out something that worked. So I'm assuming that's part of how you work with people now. So how is your way of working with helping people in their relationships different than other traditional ways of couples therapy?
You want to take that?
Go ahead.
Well, our way of dealing with couples is almost the opposite of what you would call sort of traditional couples therapy. The traditional therapy, as I see it, much like this was done with us, with this one woman, is to complain a lot, to talk about what's not working, to vent your emotions on the other person, and then to try to come up with strategies or compromises in order to try to make things okay. So it's kind of like working with the Israelis and the Palestinians, trying to get them all to get along. And in our experience, that's not the best way, because it doesn't leave you feeling greater joy and greater happiness. So what we have finally figured out after going to 10,000 different conferences and learning all of these powerful energy therapies is that the main driver of problems in relationship doesn't come from the other person. It comes from ourselves. That it's our beliefs and our negative feelings, the trauma from earlier relationships or earlier experiences, and our judgments of the other person that seem to really be the thing that compromises relationships. And when one member has their set of limiting beliefs and the other member has the other set of limiting beliefs, very often those belief sets resonate with each other in such a way that it makes things even worse. So the basic idea of the way we work is if you think it, it's yours to work on. If you believe it, it's yours to work on. And if you did it, it's yours to work on. So it's always about resolving your own inner conflict rather than trying to change your partner.
And this is extremely powerful. We first tested it out on ourselves. So we would go to Mexico once a year. After we had our first child, Tom's parents would take care of our child, and we'd go and we'd spend 4 days together. And in the mornings, we'd just devote on working on ourselves. And it was extremely powerful in a number of ways because we were both together. It wasn't that we were doing this alone. We would do it alone, but together, one person would witness the other one's work. So it takes tremendous courage to be able to own your own reality, to own your own feelings, to own your own beliefs and your own thoughts and your own judgments. And it takes being vulnerable. So I would work on with Tom present and observing and holding the space. I would work on whatever had come up for me between us. Whether it was I didn't feel attractive enough or that, I felt irritated that he didn't do certain things. Typical things that happen in relationships. We get irritated with one another all the time. And we're triggered all the time. That is part of the beauty of and the path of long-term relationships. It's almost a spiritual path. And you have to have courage, bravery, you have to have resolve and commitment to work things out. And so I would work on my issues, and he would observe and sometimes assist me as well. And it was very, very profound for both of us to share that deep work. And then he would work on himself. And I would sometimes facilitate, sometimes I would just observe him working on himself. And then we'd have a great time in the afternoon in Mexico. So we did that every year for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like some of this work can be done individually as well as a couple, as well as together as a couple.
It can be. It can. That is what is so wonderful about our technique, our way of working with people, because you don't have to do it in a couple. You can do it all by just one member of the couple can have tremendous impact on the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I'm just going to tell you a story. One time I had a couple in my office, and they had a big issue come up. And the woman of the couple was so upset, she went to the bathroom and started to vomit. She was so upset. And while that was happening, I decided just to work with the husband. And we did a technique, and he became calmer, more peaceful, more centered, and when she came out of the bathroom into the room, the whole atmosphere had shifted. And his positive state had a tremendous impact on her. And we began to then work on the issue with great success.
Mm.
There was another story that one time Tom and I had a really bad disagreement, and he didn't even want to talk to me, and he withdrew, and I always like to talk about things, so it was very difficult for me. It was in the evening right before bed, and so I had to self-calm myself. So I used all my techniques, and I self-calmed, and I cleared the whole issue for myself so much that I had a great night's sleep, and in the next morning, I felt great. And you know how sometimes couples will try to fake being nice? They want to be nice, so they're pretending that they're nice. Well, that morning I felt from the inside out great. And I felt happy, and we had breakfast as a family, and Tom went off to work out, and when he came back, he was in a great mood. And I said, honey, you're in a really good mood. What happened? And he said, well, you were in such a great mood that I decided on the way home from working out that I was going to work on myself. So he had worked on himself, and then so we were both in a really good space, and that later that evening after dinner, we talked about the issue and resolved it.
Wow.
So one person has a tremendous impact and presence on the relationship.
And that's really the benefit of something like Ask and Receive, to be able to use that in a couple. Because it's kind of like couples amplify individual issues. So if I have a belief like I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not capable enough, or whatever that might be, that belief is going to be amplified through the couple and come out sort of much louder in terms of an interference between myself and whoever I'm in relationship with. So, and because you're in relationship, it's always easier to blame it on your partner. Mm-hmm. And say, well, if only she didn't do that, then I wouldn't have to feel this way. With Ask and Receive, we can say, let me let go of that feeling inside of me, so that she can behave however she wants to behave, and it won't trigger me in that way. And then the exciting thing about that is that once I have really resolved it for myself, very often her behavior will change.
It's almost magical. It really is. And we both feel that long-term relationships are a spiritual practice, and that everything that comes up in a relationship is for the benefit of the individuals and the couple's evolution as a being. So whatever issue I had as a child, whatever trauma, whatever negative beliefs or judgments that I've had will surface in an intimate relationship. It'll be in your face. And that's an opportunity, a sacred opportunity, to work on something that's been unhealed or unresolved in your life. So it took us a long time to get there. I mean, I think for a few years, the first maybe 7 years, we were doing the typical things of blaming the other one, trying to change the other one, doing all that kind of thing. But it just wasn't working. The more I wanted him to change, the less he changed. The more anger I got at him about certain behaviors, they persisted.
Right.
Right. And it just sounds so like a real spiritual growth process of what you're helping people coming from. It feels almost like from a loving heart in a different way than you would in a couples therapy, where you if you do this, I'll do that kind of thing.
I've had people who come to me and said, when I'm by myself, I can be as spiritual as a guru. My life works. I, can pay my bills. I can do what I need to do. I feel fine. It's only once I get into a relationship that things start to fall apart that I feel like I'm going crazy. And it's because of that amplifying feature of being in a relationship. It shows you crazy that you don't see when you're by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have that crazy inside of us because we can't get to whatever, 40 years, 50 years, 60, 70 years. We can't live on the planet that long without developing beliefs that don't serve us anymore. And we need to find ways of being able to let those beliefs go once they're not useful.
Right.
And I think the other task of long-term relationships is to reach a point where you unconditionally love the other one. And in doing so, you also begin to unconditionally love yourself. So it truly is a path of love.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's both a beginning of unconditionally loving yourself, like when you calmed yourself and made you feel good, and a combination of unconditional love for both of you, which is the most spiritual practice you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as advice for all of us who have not been in long-term relationships, what's your sense about are long-term relationships easy? Are they hard? What is your sense of them?
We always joke around and we say, yes, of course, long-term relationships can be easy. But at times, long-term relationships are not for sissies. They're not, because you go through fire at times. And but that fire is the fire of pushing you to evolve, and to reach more and more of unconditional love.
Right. Long-term relationships are the hardest thing you'll ever do. They're also the greatest thing you'll ever do. But they're very, very hard not because there's a problem with the other person, but because of so much that it brings up that you need to clear in order to be able to have peace between you and to be able to continue to strive for joy and happiness, not just to get through the day.
Hmm.
The other thing is that it's very important in a long-term relationship, and it takes great discipline to maintain a positive intention. For example, we want our relationship. We have our intention is in the now. So it's our relationship is happy, joyful, loving, and fun. So maintaining that takes discipline. It takes building muscles to maintain that no matter what. So you can have issues that come up and it throws you off from that intention, but it's getting right back on track. Healing those issues and then getting right back on track with the intention.
Well, what you're talking about is really inspirational in terms of it's almost like another good reason to have a relationship is that it's an opportunity for growth. And that's an interesting, I hadn't really thought about it in that way.
Well, we all want to avoid that growth, though, much of the time, because it hurts. We would rather that the irritation went away so we didn't have to feel it. But really, if we can open ourselves to the understanding that the problem isn't out there somewhere, it's in our reaction to it, that really allows us to clear ourselves so much faster for whatever might be going on.
And the thing is, it's more empowering it's more empowering to feel that you have control over your reactions and your feelings when issues come up between your partner. It's much more empowering than blaming the other one. That feels terrible, actually. And you feel like a victim a lot of times when you're blaming the other person. They did this to me. They blah, blah. Then I go into victimhood and nothing gets done, nothing gets changed.
And one of the problems, though, is when you go to your friend and you talk about something that happened in your relationship, they're not going to help you in the way that we could as coaches, for example, because they're going to say, oh, yeah, how could he do that? Oh, that's a terrible thing. Why do you put up with that? You get help in the misperception that the problem exists out there and that you're okay, it's all out there. And really, once we get that we can shift these negative beliefs and limiting feelings and judgments so quickly, why let that happen? Well, even Pam and I have to continually step back and say, okay, what do I need to clear here that I'm starting to get so irritated or that I'm starting to react in this way? Because we spend more time taking care of our cars and our houses and cleaning up our rooms than we do cleaning up our relationship. And it really needs to be, if not a daily practice, at least something that we're doing on a regular basis so we're clearing out the excess baggage.
The importance of kind of decluttering in a relationship, having feng shui in your relationship consistently is one of the main pieces of advice I would give to people, that it has to be a top priority, one of the top priorities, because left alone, your relationship will rot. You'll get into some very negative patterns.
And what we've seen is that at least every 7 years, you've got a new relationship. So it's not like you can clear yourself for a relationship and everything's going to be happy and wonderful for the next 30. You're going to be set for a while, and then people change, situations change, jobs change, your family changes, and you have to do it all over again. Because we're not going to stay static forever, I hope, because boy, would that be boring. So we have to be able to embrace each day as a new relationship, or at least every few months as a new relationship, as we all change.
And it seems as though you're decluttering the relationship and you're also decluttering yourself.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So in terms of long-term relationships, people who have been out of relationships for a long time, I mean, I was out for 9 or 10 years. People who've been out for even longer than that, is it possible for them to have a good relationship, to get together with someone?
Well, you're a great example of the fact that, yes, you can.
Well,
No, and on lovingyourrelationships.com, there's a testimonial of someone who had not been in a relationship for many years. And she talks about her story about working with me as I was a coach for her, and how she found the love of her life. And she was in her 40s. It's very, I love working with women to help them find their beloved mate. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of this. I've been to a lot of weddings. And it's fun. So there's one case I'm thinking of right now. This woman was 45, and she started with me in my coaching business. And she had never actually been on more than 3 dates. She'd never kissed a man. she had never been ever in an intimate relationship. She had wanted to be a nun in her past. She was married. I'll just say that name, Mary. So she came to me, and she had decided at 45 that she didn't want to miss out on the experience of having an intimate relationship. So I figured out exactly what she wanted, and because of her Catholic upbringing, she had certain concerns regarding sexuality that I honored and kept that intact for her. And we worked on a number of issues, attractiveness and blocks about sexuality and intimacy and all kinds of things. And after about, 8 months, she began to date a man. And she's now been with him for 2 years. And they are thinking about getting married at this point. And it was just delightful working with her and helping her find and manifest her heart's desire.
Mm. So, I mean, your story is so inspirational that, going from being told that you need to get a divorce to really making it in a wonderful way for 32 years. But are there times when divorce or separation is really something that might be appropriate?
Absolutely. I think it's really up to the people involved to make that decision. Never, ever would I tell a person to get a divorce or to not get a divorce.
That's one thing that we really learned strongly from that therapist who was telling us to get a divorce, that it's none of our business to tell people what they should do with their relationship, only to help them do whatever it is they choose.
Right.
Also, of course, in cases of violence and abuse, and the safety of the person, one of the members is really important. That takes priority over staying with the person or not. The problem with our society today is that we think it's always greener on the other side. And so people who are in a relationship and they are beginning to have problems, they're past the infatuation stage of the relationship, and they're into the companionship stage, the long-term stage of a relationship where you are releasing certain hormones to support that long-term relationship. That's when the issues start coming up. And people, when the issues start to come up and emerge, some people want to just run, and they just want to go to somebody else. And they don't want to work through that rough period. And I feel badly for those people who leave the relationship at that point, because that pattern is going to continue in the next relationship and then continue in the next relationship unless they do their inner work. So I have a very dear friend, a girlfriend who is on her third marriage. And this marriage is a keeper. She's been married to him for, I think, 18 years now. But she did her inner work, especially after the second marriage. She did a lot of work on herself to clear herself so she was ready for the true love of her life.
Also, as we've said, you can work with just one member of the couple in order to bring, dramatic changes to the couple. But sometimes, if one member of the couple is evolving rapidly and another member of the couple just can't for some reason, either they're in resistance to the whole thing or they are limited in some other way, sometimes people find that they can't stay in relationship in those situations. And, again, it wouldn't be up to us to decide that, but that is something that happens, that optimally it's good if both members of the couple are open to self-healing.
So they
But,
can support each other. Hmm.
but I've experienced working with one member of a couple, uh, and she thought that she was changing and evolving more than her spouse. But as we worked on her, and she felt more at peace and more accepting of her spouse, um, he slowly began to evolve with her. It took him more time to reach the point that she was at, but he did it. Uh,
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So do you have some suggestions to couples about how to have a really great relationship? Do you have little tips?
Well, the first tip that I would give is to have a commitment, not just to being in relationship with the person that you're with, but to being happy there. And it really starts with a commitment to being happy together for the long term and being willing to do anything that needs to be done in order to make that happen is very important. So many times people are committed to each other, but it's more like we're going to stick together through thick and thin, no matter how much we hate each other. And that attitude doesn't get you where we want to be able to go.
Also, I would suggest that um, you tell your friends to call you on uh, if you start to complain about your spouse, or if you start to blame your spouse or your partner, um, and to call you on it, to remind you, to support you in claiming full responsibility for your own emotions and your own beliefs and your own judgments. We all need support. Also, having a coach is also very, very valuable, because he or she will call you on it when you're doing that, and place the work and focus back on yourself.
Yeah.
And very important. And we talked about the therapist that we worked with that was unsuccessful, but we have since used a number of different coaches to help us through difficult patches over the last many years. It's very hard to see your own stuff, especially in relationships, because it's so easy to blame the other person. So really don't hesitate to get help, because it's a minefield without some assistance from the outside.
And also, you want to make sure that you get tuned up
Mhm.
pretty consistently. Like, you almost schedule it in, that you have your relationship tune-ups. You don't want your car to break down on the road just out of the blue. You want to have everything working. So when you go through a rough patch, that will happen. That's normal. It's normal to have really rough patches in a long-term relationship. It'll be easier because you'll have all the mechanics working more smoothly, and you can then, and you'll have the resources, so then you can get through that much more efficiently.
Hmm. So that if you've learned not to blame and to take your own responsibility for your own joy for little things, when big things happen, then you can weather the storm. That's great.
That's right. The other tidbit, I think, is that it's really important for each individual of the relationship to be happy all by themselves, to be fulfilled, happy, and have a purpose in life. Because that is good food for the relationship. And that'll only help both of you evolve more and have more contentment and unconditional love between you.
And very often, you know, that's a hard thing to be able to get to by yourself because of judgments that come up. Like you'll feel like, well, I'm not allowed to do that because this is what my partner wants of me. And those judgments need to be recognized as judgments and something that you can heal, not something that you have to fight with your partner about. Because as you heal the judgment that, oh, well, I'm not allowed to be extroverted in these situations because he's going to be mad or she's going to be mad, you clear that and all sorts of other possibilities open up. Ask and receive, which is one of the big tools that we use, really is magical in the way that it just removes the issue from the surrounding environment as well as from the person. And that's why it can be useful for manifesting a new relationship as well as changing things that are not satisfactory about an ongoing relationship.
Right. So, Tom, were you going to show us some techniques that you use in your practice?
Well, what we thought would be really fun to do is to have Pam demonstrate how to do a sway test, which is something that you taught us to do, Sandy. But it's something that I really, really enjoy because it's a way to be able to talk to your body and to get body-centered feedback about what's congruent for you. So Pam's going to be demonstrating how to do the sway test. And then we're going to have, if you want to, while people are watching this, they can stand up and learn it along and do it along with Pam. And then we're going to have her do it for a number of relationship-related issues. And what you notice about the sway test is that all of our bodies are organized in such a way that when something is congruent for us, when it's a good thing, we tend to lean forward to move into it. And when it's something that's not congruent or not true for us, we tend to lean backward. So it's a way to be able to discover not just what our heads think about our relationship, but what our whole being believes. And our goal, once we find that there's a problem, isn't to then say, oh gosh, I think I'm a bad person. Our goal is to then just release that negative belief so that it's not there anymore, so that when we think the thought, it doesn't impact us anymore. So shall we start that?
Sure.
All right, so Pam is going to demonstrate doing the sway test for us. And the way in which you do it is you put your feet together, and very often it's easiest to do it either without shoes or wearing sort of flat shoes so that you're not off balance. And you want them fairly close together. And then you want to put your hands across your chest. And usually it works best with your eyes shut. And then when you make a statement, and it can either be aloud or in your mind, you just notice, and for some people it's a subtle effect, some people it's much more dramatic. For Pam, it's usually pretty obvious. When you make the statement, either you're going to slowly sway forward, which usually means that you're congruent with the statement or that it's good for you, or you're going to sway backwards. So let's test it out. So Pam, just say yes.
Yes.
And if you saw her, she swayed forward. All right, now say no.
No.
And she swayed backward. Now say your name. My name is...
My name is Pam.
And she swayed forward. My name is Benjamin Franklin. That's Sandy's favorite.
My name is Benjamin Franklin.
Good. Now, think about someone that you love. Good. And now, think about someone who irritates you or upsets you. Okay. So if you saw all of those things, for those things that were positive or true, she swayed forward. And for those things that were not true or that she wasn't congruent with, she went backward. So I hope those of you who were trying this at home or who were watching this had a similar effect as you were doing it. And if your response wasn't as dramatic as Pam's, don't worry about that. For some of us, it's very, very subtle. But this exercise that we were just doing about saying yes or no, my name is Pam, my name is Benjamin Franklin, think about someone that you love or someone that irritates you. Those are what are called calibrating statements, so that you can learn how your body responds. And that's the important thing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just have Pam make 3 statements. And when we're doing this, we always want to be making a statement, not asking a question. And these statements in the beginning are going to be asking for her relationship to herself, because that is the primary relationship and the thing that often trips up all other relationships. Okay, let's just try this one. I like myself.
I like myself.
Good. I deserve good things in life.
I deserve good things in life.
Good. I deserve to be loved.
I deserve to be loved.
Let's try a little more specifically. I deserve to be loved by myself.
I deserve to be loved by myself.
I deserve to be loved by my partner.
I deserve to be loved by my partner.
Good. I deserve to be loved by God.
I deserve to be loved by God.
Good. Now that's an interesting one, because even people who don't believe in God will have a reaction to that statement. And all we're interested in is whether we're congruent with it or non-congruent with it. Because how you feel about the universe is going to affect how you respond to the universe. So we just want to be able to be clear for all of these things. All right, we'll do a couple more. I am attractive to others.
I am attractive to others.
Okay. I can relate to others with confidence.
I can relate to others with confidence.
And then a last one. I feel safe with others.
I feel safe with others. Oh, there's certain issues coming up for me, so I had a no for that. I know what this issue is about. With one person, yes.
It's a really great demonstration, and it was like a way that you can see that we can measure, we can find out what our body is really believing, and then that opens us up to be able to make change. So I'm excited about using this weight test that I started using with vitamin C and eggs and chicken or something and using it for this. So this is very exciting.
Well, what you can see from the way we were doing it was Pam was pretty clear on most of those statements. She swayed forward, meaning that they were positive statements, and she was responding positively to them until that issue about being safe with others. Now, Pam clears herself regularly for things. And so even though she does that, she found one phrase that she responded to negatively. And so probably what she's going to do with that is she's going to clear herself for that because it's showing her, oh, there's another piece of me that I can heal.
Yeah, so I'll be using Ask and Receive or another technique, whatever my fancy is at the moment. But Ask and Receive is really the easiest.
Well, I know there's a lot of people like me who was weak, I was muscle testing myself on more of those statements than Pam was. So there's a lot of us that could use some of this tune-up. So I don't know about anyone else, but I'm totally inspired by your talk. So I would love if you could tell people how they could work with you so they could get this kind of a tune-up.
Well, you can contact either of us on askandreceive.org or through lovingyourrelationships.com or my email, paltaffer@comcast.net. I am now doing Transform Your Relationship discovery sessions. So you can actually sign up for discovery sessions on lovingyourrelationships.com.
Which are free.
Yes, it's completely free. It's a 30-minute session, discovery session, and you will learn all kinds of things about yourself. You'll get clarity about what your next step is. You'll get an idea about what your unconscious blocks are to having happy relationships. And
But you have to apply for it because she's a busy woman. And so she's only got a few of these that she does every month. And so if the first come, first serve, pretty much, to see whether people want to apply. Also, if you come to our new website at lovingyourrelationships.com, we have a little booklet that has a slideshow that we've used to teach therapists how to do some of this work, and that can sort of give you more of what we've been talking about today and more of the sort of the clinical understanding behind it.
It's actually quite a substantial booklet. It's 44 pages long, right?
Yeah.
And it answers all kinds of questions about relationships, and it's free. So please take the opportunity to get this free booklet to help you in your life.
Well, this has been wonderful. I have learned so much, and I'm going to go download the booklet right now. And I just thank you so much for sharing your information. I think what you have to offer to everyone is just so important for everyone and everyone on this planet right now, so that we can be happier. You know, that we can find a way to be together and be happy. So thank you for, sort of stepping and making a path for the rest of us to follow. You've created this path from your hard work that makes it now easier for everyone else after you. So thank you.